This domain of word is what really keeps you aligned with what you want to do and how you do it and how you lead your teams. Welcome, everyone. My name is Spencer. This is the Leadership Launch series. And today I'm going to be talking to you about something I like to call the domain of word. So the domain of word, if you watch anime, maybe you're familiar with this anime called Jujutsu Kaisen. And in the anime, you have a person or a humanoid creature of some kind, and they end up having this ability where they can make what they call domain expansion, so to speak. So from themselves outward, they make some sort of domain that surrounds them, that they control, that is the epitome of their power within whatever that force is. And I'm explaining the most simple terms possible. Ever noticed that some people, especially those that are famous or in leadership roles, or perhaps have some sort of just posse or group that they're a part of, those leaders have a presence of some kind. It's almost like a wherewithal of confidence, something that exudes often that you can't quite help but notice. And it's not something that you can easily ignore either. Again, that comes into play with this whole domain of word. So the domain of word, from what I've experienced it to be, is the following. So there are four areas that get tackled when we talk about this concept of the domain of word, or at least from my experience. And it does link back to integrity, because integrity is a pinnacle principle where if you don't have it in your leadership, you're not going to succeed at anything you do for your group, for your team, for the people you say, because again, from other videos, you erode the power to yourself and the power to others when you're not keeping in your integrity. And you can watch the video previously about integrity itself. Highly recommend it. But going into the four areas here, what I've experienced the domain of word to be is 100% causing your word, 100% existence in your word, 100% impact of action, and 100% honoring your word. And let's just dive into all four of those one at a time. All right. So when we talk about the first one, 100% cause in your word, what I'm really talking about is the intent behind what you say. So if we're interchanging the cause or the intent behind your word, there's a lot of weight to that depending on what you say to others and to yourself. A lot of people have a lot of weight in a lot of different external factors, if that makes sense, relating to them and other people, partially because we find that there's a lot of status in that. And we also find that there's a lot of elements to try and not look bad in that when we talk to other people, especially amongst our teams. We may even have different values and dynamics between the intent of what we say based off of the current state of our relationships or what our priorities are or what needs to get done within the team itself. So that is the intent. Because if you have the intent to run a meeting, let's say that you're running a meeting, okay? So if you call a meeting and all that you call, and we're going to do this by percentage, if you call a meeting, I'm just going to erase this, and you have people show up and you're not prepared, or if you do even have materials, you're having people read the materials, or you just let people not participate, then when we look at the cause in your word, the intent of your word, what is going to drive the whole thing, people now have an imprint of what your intent really means, what the cause of what you're saying is really from. If we're taking meetings, just as an example, it's almost like Michael Scott from The Office. He'd call a meeting, and really it's just for him to reinforce his opinion amongst everyone else, regardless of how they feel about the situation. So you're not actually having 100% cause in your word regarding the meeting, because all you had the intent of doing was calling a meeting and stating what your opinion was. So the intent is very low. If we were to look at these 5 points, if anything, the cause of your word in this one example would be 20%. if we're to assign an arbitrary number because you're just stating an opinion, your own opinion, you call a meeting just to word vomit what you're saying as a leader and you neglect everything else. So if we were to take the same example and we're going to see 100% cause in the word, we're going to see a few changes. And in turn, it caused a dynamic shift between how you act, the intent of what you say, and what people's intent of expectation is from what you say. If you are really being the cause in your word, the intent of the meeting, you're going to set expectations. You're going to prepare for the meeting. And if you are preparing materials for the meeting, well, then those people are going to read those materials. You're going to require them to read those materials before you go into the meeting. You restate the expectations, what you're setting out to do for the meeting. So you're intentional with saying thank you for coming and contributing. That's important. Then you're going to make sure to, again, reset expectations. You're going to open up with what you prepared with for the meeting. And then you're going to ask for inputs, making everyone participate because that's what you value. And then I know you can't see this, but stay with me. Then you're gonna make sure to reiterate everyone's input so you can really hear what it was. And then you're gonna close the meeting off, again, restating why it was important and thanking them for their contribution. And you're gonna follow up with them if need be and follow up with the whole team once you've come to your decision. So from the previous 5 that we saw, where there wasn't really any intent behind what you said, except for you wanting to let people know what you want to say. If there are 10 here, and let's say you're missing 1, then if you are missing 1, 90% of what you said has come to fruition. So when you call a meeting, the people know the intent behind the meeting. When we call a meeting and our intent is that, what we just talked about, people are much more inclined to listen to that than, not listen to that, but take that seriously, right? Engage with it differently than they would have otherwise. If we were to go back to what we originally were talking about, since that was only 20% cause in your word, what that really means is that you were disguising the cause of why you were having a meeting. You were disguising the intent of the meeting. So if we were to bring that to 100% of what it was, 100% cause in your word for that is instead of calling for a meeting, you would say, hey team, I want to run through with you what I'm planning to do for this specific project. So just have a breakdown. Since that's the case, people disguise it as something else because not a lot of people want that. Not a lot of people want to sit down and meet where the boss just talks to them about what they're going to do and the problem that they have and how they're going to solve it. It doesn't actually help anyone. And that's why it's disguised as a different intent so that it helps them get what they actually want in the first place, which really disrupts the whole weight of your word and your communication in the first place. The second thing we got to talk about is 100% existence in your word. What I mean by this is that you don't have to justify. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to otherwise defend why certain things the way they are unprompted. Because what you say, when you live in a relationship with your word, that you live 100% to what you say, and this is a little bit conceptual, but if you really feel you're 100% what you say, when you say, hey, I can't take that meeting at 3 p.m., it's interpreted differently when there's no justification at the end of it, compared to people say, I can't make 3 p.m. because of blank, 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 and this would just ruin the day, blank, 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 blank. Only when prompted, people will then explain why they need, because otherwise, you're existing in your word. What you say is enough, assuming that you are intentionally, in integrity, living in what you say you're doing. And this is how you can tell if people are living in the existence of what they say. what ends up happening is when people do not live in the existence of what they say, and we'll take the workout example. So if you're 100% in the existence that you manage your calendar actively, right? So if you're 100% actively managing your calendar, your word, regardless of if you explain it or you don't explain it, still holds the same weight to you. And it does psychologically translate to your counterpart, whether that's your leader that you're training, any employees that you have, or your boss when you're talking about a workload. It is all applicable. So when they ask, can you do 3 p.m.? and you're not existing in your word, it's no, I can't. I have because I'm busy with blah, 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 blah. There's a justification to it, which implies that your word doesn't have weight to what you're saying in the first place. It means that it's movable in the first place. And that's why when you go with the second response, I'm not available at that time. If you do this with your family, with your partner, with your team, you're going to notice very quickly that people take what you say at the face value as 100%. And only if that doesn't work for them or there's some sort of conflict in their mind, will they then challenge it a little bit more, which is then why you come up with the explanation. It radically changes your world once you get that. So that's why you want to be 100% in the existence of your word. Because it implies, just to recap, it implies that you're not 100% with your word. What you say has more value. The second is that less is more. If you are truly not available because you do take the actions you need in order to do the things you need to do, when you say that no 3 p.m. doesn't work, you mean no 3 p.m. does not work. You're not just saying that because you don't prefer it. It's because no, it does not work. And people get that really quick. And it's because you 100% believe in what you're saying. And because you 100% believe, you take yourself seriously. Moving on to the next one. When you have 100% impact on action tied to your word, when you have 100% action on what you say, it's because it comes from the other two. You have the intentionality of what you say, and you also have the existence of what you say it to be. And that also impacts the action you take, what you do, and how you go about doing it. So when you have the intent, now let's go back to the mean, and we're going to use the mean for the example in this video. If you go to that mean and you have the intent to solve a problem, to get the input, to have ideas bounce off you so you can really figure this out, then you're going to exist and know you have to come prepared for this mean. When people are pushing back against you, you are in existence, and the action you take is like, hey, I want to make sure I'm prepared for the mean. Can you send me the materials? Yes, I can. I will get that to you. Let me check my calendar. Blah 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 blah. Okay, I got 2 hours during this time. I will get that to you between 4 and 5 so that you're prepared for the meeting next day. Cool, thanks, great. So you prepare, the actions you take are guided by the intention you have, and because of that, it translates into the impact of your action. People see the outcomes, they see the results, and those results are what influence what you say to other people. There's a weight to it. 100% honoring your word. If we were to take the same meeting example, let's say they go through the meeting and you had 90% intent. Let's say you had 100% in existence, and let's say that 80% of you took only 80% of the action. That means that in terms of the value of your word, the weight of which your word is, only 70% of that came to fruition. What? How's that make sense? You got 90, 180. Wouldn't that be 270? No, because people don't think that way. People don't think that all this adds up to 270. They think that adds up to 70% because we think simply the input. Oh, yeah, they had 90% intent. This mean, well, they went off a little bit. Yeah, they 100% had an existence and made sure that everyone was there, except the action that they took only reflected the most part. So overall, I say for the most part, it was good, like 70%, but they don't look at the holistic 270%. The fact is, they don't. People think emotionally, and emotionally, they feel like you missed the mark here and here. So they focus on the 30% you missed, and then they default from taking that away from what they would think 100% looks like, which is why they end up with the 70% overall impact of your word. So the next question that some of you may ask, if you haven't asked already, is why have this domain of word? Why have that domain of word? Why is that so important for you, your team, the business, the organization, whatever the case? Just like I've said in that previous example, because people think emotionally, they also tend to reflect what they see based off of their own past experience and whatnot. And when you continually enforce 100% intention in what you say, and you keep it in existence, and you take the actions to reinforce it, and then at the end of it, you honor your word by addressing anything you didn't do, all of a sudden, people understand that the dynamic of which you work is different than others that they have experienced in the past. It could be past leaders, managers, bosses, whatever you want to say. People experience you differently. And because they experience you differently, then you create this domain that you operate from. And when people come into your domain, which is just interacting with you at the end of the day, whether it's direct or indirect, they too operate within that domain. And when they operate within that domain, no matter how small it is, it creates an impact. People recognize that and they respect it. Especially as a leader, you need to have that so that it's respected, that your word has value. So when you do all those four previous things that I mentioned beforehand, that's what generates this sort of presence, this domain of which you created, that people take you seriously. I'm going to tell you a story on how I realized that I created this domain of work. My brother and I are two different people. My brother is a philosopher, right? So I'm just going to put Phil. He's a philosopher, and I recently created my principles and values, which I've discussed before. Principles and values, right? And the thing is that my brother loves deep conversations. He really likes poking at the subjectivity of the human condition and people. And one day, we're just sitting on the couch, and he provokes a conversation with me. And in this conversation, he asks me about my principles and values. And he's taking little jabs at me whenever he can, wherever he can, because that's just natural for the conversations he likes to have, right? And what ended up happening was that, for context, previously, my brother and I, we would have these conversations, and I would always be the one getting riled up. I would get frustrated, I would get loud, I would get more intense, I would be more charged, and he would just be there soaking it in, loving it, because he loves these deep philosophical conversations. Today was different. Today, because I knew the principles and values that I operated from, because I experienced myself as 100% cause in my word, I am 100% existing in my word, I am 100% ash in my word, I am myself through what I say. When he asked me a bunch of different questions that really poked and tried to jab at, he didn't get past anything. There was nothing to break down. There was nothing that he could find controversial because I am through what I say. And it was a really surreal experience since all the different ways he poked at it, it would have gone to me before, but it didn't this time. It was really, it was surreal for me to experience that because I didn't need to explain or justify myself. I had the confidence in what I was saying so securely because of the actions I've taken that he felt that. And he felt like he needed to go different directions of conversation in order to try a different angle, right? To come at from, to get some sort of controversy. And long story short, it has been a long time, or long story short, he asked me one question, and it was a very simple one. He asked me, "Hey, can you tell me what is good and bad?" And I said, "I can't tell you what's good and bad. I can't. You, at the end of it, you're going to decide whether you accept that as good or bad. I can perhaps help you with your relationships or a conversation you want to have with a teammate or a friend or, a love interest. I can't tell you what's good or bad though." And he started trying to go through this path, which really confused me for the most part. And that's because it was being conceptualized, really, really conceptualized. So there's so much distance from actually, talking one on one. We were there for another hour just talking, and I actually didn't really understand what he was saying, but I kept reiterating that I can't tell him what's good or bad. By the end of the conversation, he he then stopped conceptualizing and said plainly, "Is it really because you can't say?" And then I thought about it with intention, and he said, "You know what? If I were to change what I said previously, I would in fact say instead, I won't tell you what's good or bad because I won't." And he's like, "Thank you. That's all I want." For an hour, we had that conversation, and he started ruminating about what particularly I was saying because there was nothing left to talk about. But he just kept going on and on. And that's the one point I really felt like I had an ounce of the wisdom that I keep chasing after because I was completely in peace and content. I made myself a domain of word that he could not penetrate, and therefore he had to interact with me differently because of that. And that's the power of this. And that's why I really encourage you to build this up for yourself. This can change your life, and and it will change the dynamic you have with people, yourself, and your teams. I hope that the video was helpful for you and really clarified what the power is between your word and creating that domain. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment down below and I'd be happy to respond. And please subscribe so that I can see you in the next video.